So welcome to everyone to our Bhagavad-gītā class. Nice that all of you are here. Hare Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Let us offer most humble obeisances at the lotus feet of Srila Vyasadeva. Let us offer our most humble obeisances at the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, and all his eternal associates, beginning with Arjuna. Let us offer our most humble obeisances at the lotus feet of Srila Prabhupada, and our most respectful obeisances to the book Sri Bhagavad-gītā As It Is. May they all bless us so that we are able to receive this wonderful transcendental knowledge that will drive away our ignorance in the same surrendered attitude as Sri Arjuna received it. So we are reading from Bhagavad-gītā As It Is, chapter 12, verse 5. This chapter is called Devotional Service. Kleśo dhika-taras
dhika-taras
teṣām.
Teṣām
Kleśo dhika-taras teṣām.
kleśo dhika-taras teṣām
avyaktāsakta-cetasām. avyaktāsakta-cetasām.
avyaktāsakta-cetasām
Avyakta
avyakta
hi
gatir
duḥkhaṁ. avyakta hi gatir duḥkhaṁ.
avyakta
gatir duḥkhaṁ
dehavadbhir
dehavadbhir
avāpyate.
avāpyate
dehavadbhir avāpyate.
dehavadbhir avāpyate
kleśo dhika-taras teṣām.
kleśo
dhika-taras teṣām
avyaktāsakta-cetasām.
avyaktāsakta-cetasām
avyakta hi gatir duḥkhaṁ.
avyakta hi
gatir duḥkhaṁ
dehavadbhir avāpyate.
dehavadbhir avāpyate
kleśo dhika-taras teṣām.
kleśo dhika-taras teṣām
avyaktāsakta-cetasām.
avyaktāsakta-cetasām
avyakta hi gatir duḥkhaṁ.
avyakta hi gatir duḥkham
dehavadbhir avāpyate.
dehavadbhir avāpyate
kleśo dhika-taras teṣām.
kleśo dhika-taras teṣām
avyaktāsakta-cetasām.
avyaktāsakta-cetasām
avyakta hi gatir duḥkhaṁ.
avyakta hi gatir duḥkham
dehavadbhir avāpyate.
dehavadbhir avāpyate.
So read, please.
Synonyms: kleśa, trouble; adhika-taraḥ, very much; teṣām, of them; avyakta, to the unmanifested; āsakta, attached; teṣām, of those whose minds; avyakta, toward the unmanifested. He certainly; gatir, progress; duḥkhaṁ, with trouble; deha-vadbhiḥ, by the embodied; avāpyate, is achieved. Translation: for those whose minds are attached to the unmanifested, impersonal feature of the Supreme, advancement is very troublesome. To make progress in that discipline is always difficult for those who are embodied. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The group of transcendentalists who follow the path of inconceivable, unmanifested, impersonal feature of the Supreme Lord are called jñāna-yogīs, and persons who are in full Krishna consciousness, engaged in devotional service to the Lord, are called bhakti-yogīs. Now, here the difference between jñāna-yoga and bhakti-yoga is definitely expressed. The process of jnana-yoga, although ultimately bringing one to the same goal, is very troublesome. Whereas the path of bhakti-yoga, the process of being in direct service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is easier and is natural for the embodied soul. The individual soul is embodied since time immemorial. It is very difficult for him to simply theoretically understand that he is not the body. Therefore, the bhakti yogi accepts the deity of Kṛṣṇa as worshipable because there is some bodily conception fixed in the mind, which can thus be applied. Of course, worship of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his form within the temple is not idol worship. There is evidence in the Vedic literature that worship may be saguna or niraguna, of the Supreme possessing or not possessing attributes. Worship of the deity in the temple is saguna worship, for the Lord is represented by material qualities. But the form of the Lord, though represented by material qualities such as stone, wood, or oil paint, is not actually material. That is the absolute nature of the Supreme Lord. A crude example may be given here. We may find some mail boxes on the street, and if we post our letters in those boxes, they will naturally go to their destination without difficulty. But any old box or an imitation which we may find somewhere but which is not authorized by the post office will not do the work. Similarly, God has an unauthorized representation in the deity form, which is called Archa Vigraha. This Archa Vigraha is an incarnation of the Supreme Lord. God will accept service through that form. The Lord is omnipotent, all-powerful, therefore, by his incarnation as Archa Vigraha, he can accept the services of the devotee just to make it convenient for the man in conditioned life. So for a devotee, there is no difficulty in approaching the Supreme immediately and directly. But for those who are following the impersonal way to spiritual realization, the path is difficult. They have to understand the unmanifested representation of the Supreme through such Vedic literatures as Upanishads, and they have to learn the language, understand the non-perceptual feelings, and realize all these processes. It is not very easy for a common man. A person in Krishna consciousness engaged in devotional service simply by the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master, simply by offering regulative obeisances unto the deity, simply by hearing the glories of the Lord, and simply by eating the remnants of foodstuffs offered to the Lord, realizes the Supreme Personality of Godhead very easily. There is no doubt that the impersonalists are unnecessarily taking a troublesome path with the risk of not realizing the absolute truth at the ultimate end. But the personalist, without any risk, trouble, or difficulty, approaches the Supreme Personality directly. A similar passage appears in Srimad Bhagavatam. It is stated there that if one ultimately has to surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, this surrendering process is called bhakti, but instead takes the trouble to understand what is Brahman and what is not Brahman, and spends his whole life in that way, the result is simply troublesome. Therefore, it is advised here, one should not take up this troublesome path of self-realization because there is uncertainty in the ultimate result. A living entity is eternally an individual soul.
Slowly, Prabhuji, you're going too fast.
Sorry. A living entity is eternally an individual soul. And if he wants to merge into the spiritual whole, he may accomplish the realization of the eternal and knowledgeable aspects of his original nature. But the blissful portion is not realized. By the grace of some devotee, such a transcendental, highly learned in the process of jñāna-yoga, may come to the point of bhakti-yoga or devotional service. At the time, long practice in impersonalism also becomes a source of trouble because he cannot give up the idea. Therefore, an embodied soul is always in difficulty with the unmanifest, both at the time of practice and at time of realization. Every living soul is partially independent, and one should know for certain that this unmanifested realization is against the nature of his spiritual, blissful self. One should not take up this process. For every individual living entity, the process of Krishna consciousness, which entails full engagement in devotional service, is the best way. If one wants to ignore this devotional service, there is a danger of turning to atheism. Thus, the process of centering attention on the unmanifested, the inconceivable, which is beyond the approach of the senses, as already expressed in this verse, should never be encouraged at any time, especially in this age. It is not advised by Lord Krishna.
So then first, once again, kleśo teṣām, avyakta āsakta-cetasām, avyakta gatir duḥkhaṁ, dehavadbhir, avāpyate. For those whose minds are attached to the unmanifested, impersonal feature of the Supreme, advancement is very troublesome. To make progress in that discipline is always difficult for those who are embodied. This particular part of Krishna's declaration statement, difficult for those who are embodied. Why did he have to add this particular point? Difficult for those who are embodied. And those who are embodied carries the burden of their karma. So therefore, first of all, they have to get rid of that burden. Only then they can more easily go forward. But what is the process by which they can completely burn to ashes all karmic reactions? This is the process which has been given by Krishna as jñāna-yoga. Jnana-yoga. Through Jnana, it is possible to eradicate much of the sinful reactions. However, the offenses remain. We are not only concerned with papa, sinful activities, which produces bad karma, negative karma. That is not our only concern, or that is not the only obstacle between the jiva and his full potential in attaining spiritual perfection. Not. So therefore, the whole process of first getting rid of all the bad karmic reactions, and then still being stuck with offenses. What are the offenses? In the most gross manner, the offenses are what we call gross manner. Other anarthas. So now the anarthas, the first three, let us say, Swarubhram, that is being deluded and bewildered over our true identity. That is the first one of them, Swarubhram. The second one is Asat-trishna, running after temporary things, Asat-trishna. And the third one is Hridaya Daurvalyam, weaknesses of the heart, attachments to the mundane things which are very difficult to give up, and the attachment to false ego. This is very difficult. And the fourth one is offenses. Offenses. Aparad. So this aparad is not so easy to give up. The only way that one gets completely free from all aparad is through the chanting of the holy name. And therefore Krishna later in the Bhagavad-gītā is saying that Bahunam Janmanam Ante Jnanavan Mam Prapadyate Vasudevam Sarvamiti Sa Mahatma Sudurlava. Which Mahatma? The one who has taken complete shelter of Vasudev Krishna. Mam Prapadyate. Prapadyate means Prakrishta Rupe Padyate. Padyate means fully given at the lotus feet. Prakrishta Rupe. That means one can take shelter of Krishna aprapadyate. Apadyate. That is for mundane success, for mundane treasures, mundane results. That is not prapadyate. Prakrishta Rupe Padyate means without the slightest trace of mundane material desire. Vasudevam Sarvam Iti. Vasudev is everything. And what is the meaning of everything? Jasmin Gyatva Sarvam Eva Gyatva Bhavati. That is everything. Once you know this personality, Vasudev, there's nothing more to be known. Because everything is revealed to you. Revealed. Similarly, Sa Mahatma Sudurlava. Mahatma. How does Krishna describe Mahatma? Krishna is saying a Mahatma is Mahatmanas tumam partha daivim prakritim ashrita. Mahatmanas tumam daivim prakritim ashrita. Mahatma is that personality who has taken full shelter. Full shelter. At the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord. Mahatmanastamam partha. Daivim prakritim ashrita. Daivim prakriti means Visuddha Sattva. Visuddha Sattva. That is Daivim prakritim ashrita. Otherwise it is not possible. This personality who is being described after having taken shelter at the lotus feet of Vasudeva is described as Mahatma. And so Mahatma Sudurlava, not only Durlava, Sudurlava. Krishna says also that there's only a few who will actually come to know me know me perfectly. From many, many persons who are who have taken up spiritual life, only a few will have perfection, will know me as I am. Manushyanam sahasreshu kaschin jatati siddhaye. Jatadamapi siddhanam kaschin mam. Kaschin mam. Very, very few. So therefore Krishna is saying that they're very rare. And the process of impersonal realization to come to the ultimate goal of life, to attain the ultimate goal of life, is extremely difficult. And therefore Krishna is saying Bahunam Janmanam. Bahunam, many, many lifetimes. Whereas bhakti-yoga is so simple. Whereas the path of bhakti-yoga, process of being in direct service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is easier and is natural for the embodied soul. So now we know why Krishna is saying difficult for those who are embodied soul. Because the embodied soul needs to act according to his original spiritual nature. Unless he acts according to his original spiritual nature, he will not be able to attain perfection. And here Srila Prabhupada is mentioning in the purport that one way of realizing that the absolute truth is personal is by taking up deity worship under the guidance of the spiritual master. Deity worship. So by this worship of the Lord with faith, it has to be done with faith. It is called saguna worship. And this impersonal process is the nirguna process. Nirguna means denying. Here guna doesn't mean the three modes of material nature. Here guna means nature, qualities, attributes, excellences. So nirguna worship is denial of the Lord's form, attributes, character, activities, excellences, and so on and so forth. Whereas the worship of deity in temple is saguna worship, for the Lord is represented by material qualities. What material qualities? That he is visible to the naked eye. That he is responds to our sense of touch, a sense of smell, a sense of taste, and a sense of hearing. All the five senses are able to experience the Supreme Lord, Saguna, because the Lord is present in the deity form as an incarnation of the Lord known as Archa-vigraha, with all his excellences and attributes, all his qualities, they are all invested in the supreme form of his deity. So, Archa-vigraha connects us directly to the Supreme Lord. Directly. Whereas the impersonal does not. So therefore, Srila Prabhupada brings in the example of letterbox. Authorized letterbox will take our letters to the right address. We are actually sending it. Whereas unauthorized letterbox cannot. So therefore, the Archa-vigraha is the authorized letterbox. So worship of the Archa-vigraha will take us to the realization of the personal form of the Lord. Whereas as much as we may try, it will not be possible to approach the Lord. It will not be possible. So therefore, after many, many births, the jnani, if by some good fortune, after all, jnana is also giving the impersonalist worshipper a lot of sukriti. Because in jñāna-yoga, one must follow certain rules and regulations, cleanliness, celibacy, and sattvic lifestyle. So the sattvic lifestyle is pious deeds, practicing Brahminical qualities, non-violence, truthfulness, honesty, tolerance, cleanliness. So these are helping for the jnani to accumulate sukriti, which then leads to meeting a devotee of the Lord. As it is said in the Padma Purana, bhaktistu bhagavad-bhaktena parijayate. Bhaktistu bhagavad-bhaktena parijayate. Bhakti is directly a result of associating with a devotee of the Lord. Bhaktistu bhagavad-bhaktena. There should be no gray areas. Therefore, Bhagavad Bhakti, not any other bhakta, the bhakta of the Supreme Lord. Bhagavad Bhaktena parijayate. And how does one, in the millions and millions of different incarnations of going through the cycle of birth and death, does one meet, have association with a Bhagavad Bhakta? Satsanga prapyate punghi. Satsanga, association of a sadhu, satsanga prapyate, gains, gets. Punghi means human being. Satsanga prapyate punghi. Sukritoy purva sanchitoy. Sukritoy purva sanchitoy. Accumulated piety over many, many, many lifetimes will bring one in association of a devotee. And then such a jnani bhakta, na bahunam janmanante, vasudevam sarvam iti, comes to that realization. And then becomes a Mahatma. Because after realizing Vasudev as the ultimate goal of everything, the process of purification of his anarthas, especially of his aparad, begins. And then he is situated in the transcendental position. Transcendental. So Sunday, question answer day. We shall now begin with the question answer session.
Hare Krishna. My question is that those who follow or meditate upon the unmanifested and impersonal form of Supreme, what is their take on Krishna's pastime?
On Krishna's?
Leela, Krishna Leela pastime. What is their take on that?
Well, I don't know. Do you know?
No, I don't know. I just wonder because they are not following the personal feature of Krishna. They're following impersonal. And at the same time, we have a huge literature of Krishna Leela in many forms. What is their take on that? They reject it?
I don't know if they reject it. They may be equating with some other personalities with great prowess to think of Krishna as some superhuman personality, but not God. The concept of God, Brahman, is different.
But in Bhagavad-gītā, Krishna actually declares, and he shows his Virat Swarup whereby he is God himself, do they reject it altogether?
They interpret it in a different way.
But Krishna is saying that he is God. How can they interpret it in a different way? This is
Well, I think you'll have to ask them directly.
there is a huge dissonance in this, that it's very clearly written and still they don't accept it.
Well, if they come into the association of a pure devotee, then of course it may be possible for them to understand Krishna's statements in the right light and perspective. Without the mercy of a devotee, it is not possible to understand who is Krishna.
So actually, by following the unmanifested and impersonal form of the Lord, not only they deny the existence, but they also are imprisoned in a sense.
They are what?
They're not only denying the personal form of the Lord, but they are,
Yes.
in a sense, they are imprisoned themselves.
But they don't think like that. They don't think like that. They think that those who are following and worshipping the personal Supreme Lord, personal absolute truth, they have imprisoned themselves.
Difficult to understand. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Gurudev.
Yes.
In Bhagavad-gītā, there is in season 8, 5, verse 5, said, "Anyone who remembers me when he leaves his body will reach my nature, and there is no doubt about it." And after that, I don't know exactly where, I cannot say the verse.
Yes, so what is your question?
Yeah.
Yes.
In the other places, I have written
Yes.
the process of leaving this material body and acquiring another physical body in this material world has also been arranged. A person dies when the body of his next life is determined, and this decision is made by higher authorities who determine the body. What should be the next life of the living being, not that the living being itself should make a decision about it. And the other place, there is any state of existence that a person remembers when he leaves his current body, he will achieve that state in the next life. According to 1 and 3, everything we remember when we leave our body, next life is like that. But according number 2, everything from higher authorities determine body before death. Could you please explain about this?
Well, actually, it is the same thing they're saying. You see, what happens is that not everything is repeated, because Bhagavad-gītā is a compilation of the entire Vedic philosophy and truth in a very brief manner. Now, Krishna is saying in another place that from me comes remembrance, forgetfulness, and knowledge. So, when Krishna is saying from higher authorities, he's saying that at the time of death, I am still the Paramatma in accompanying the soul. So I, as the Paramatma who is accompanying the soul, will give the soul remembrance of his attachment and worship of Krishna. For the devotee who has been engaging in years of worship, meditation, and chanting the name of Sri Krishna, even at the moment of death, if the devotee cannot remember Krishna, because there's the moment of death, there's so much happening in his mind. The soul is leaving the body. So he may not be able to remember. But Krishna will give him the memory, give him the remembrance. And in that way, Krishna as Paramatma is the higher authority. At the moment of death, there is only the soul and super soul, no one else. No one else. So this remembering and whatever state of mind one leaves the body will attain that state. So a devotee, even if he remembers, then well and good, he will immediately go to the Supreme Lord. His nature means his transcendental nature. Krishna's nature is transcendental. Krishna's nature is saying, he will come to my nature, means it is known as Visuddha Sattva, transcendental nature. And even if the devotee cannot remember due to some reason, Krishna will give him the remembrance. Because Krishna never forgets. Krishna will not forget all the years, all the time that a devotee has practiced Krishna consciousness. Will always be appreciated by Krishna. Krishna will not forget. He's not ungrateful. Krishna is very grateful. You do a little service for Krishna, and he immediately will reward so much. So therefore, there's no contradiction in these statements from this chapter 8. No contradictions. It just does not at every time say everything. And we also have to get our knowledge from the different statements of Krishna in different parts of the Bhagavad-gītā.
Thank you very much, Gurudev. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. All glories to your loving divine grace.
Hare Krishna.
Hari Bol.
I have one question that since Krishna, when he is preaching to Bhagavad-gītā to Arjuna, he talks about the sun god. Does Krishna ever talk about the previous incarnations like Rama, etc.?
About his own incarnation?
Yeah, does he mention anywhere?
No. No, he doesn't.
Like in the Brahma Samhita, there is a verse, Ramadi Murti Shukalani Yamena Tishtan Nanavataram. So Brahmaji is praying to Lord. So, I mean, is there any discussion about that, about his several incarnations?
It is not necessary. The Bhagavad-gītā, it is not necessary to talk about his previous incarnations. He may allude to it, that I'm speaking the Bhagavad-gītā to you now. The last time I spoke the Bhagavad-gītā to Vivaswan. So when he talks about the last time, it is an allusion to the certain incarnation of his. It is only that. At the same time, he's also saying that at every millennium I appear again and again to establish or re-establish the principles of religion. So these are all allusions to his previous incarnations.
Thank you.
Can I ask another question, Gurudev?
Yes, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. In Srimad Bhagavatam 131, what is conditioned souls or nitya-vadbhiḥ? The meaning of that. I didn't understand exactly the meaning of that.
Nitya-vadbhiḥ.
Yes.
Nitya means eternal, Baddha means conditioned or captured or enslaved. So we in the material world, we are all Nitya Baddhas. That means we are eternally captive or prisoner of Maya. Baddha means prisoner. So we are eternal prisoners of Maya Devi. There is Nitya Baddha. And there is this Nitya Siddha, means one who was eternally perfected. So these are different terminologies in Sanskrit. However, Nitya Baddha means conditioned souls who are in the embodied state right now in the material world.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
So when Krishna so desires and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Prabhupada blesses us, we shall get to hear Harikatha once again very soon, right now. I thank all of you for your patient hearing and beg forgiveness for all the mistakes I have committed. Let us once again offer our most humble obeisances at the lotus feet of Srila Vyasadeva, at the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Kṛṣṇa, and his eternal associates, beginning with Arjuna. Let us also offer our most humble obeisances at the lotus feet of Srila Prabhupada and our respectful obeisances to the book Sri Bhagavad-gītā As It Is. Hare Krishna, and all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.